This conference will now be recorded.
Hello, my name is Gayane Stepanian, and it's quite an honor to be here with you to share what I love, which is biomagnetism. Today, I'd like to talk to you about eliminating COVID-19 with biomagnetism. First of all, I'd really like to welcome you to the first international conference on alternative and ancient medicine, sponsored by the IAM, the International Association of Alternative and Ancient Medicine. Thank you for coming, thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining me. Now, it's no surprise that we're talking about this topic during this conference, given the state of affairs in the world. But before we begin, I'd like to urge you to consider that the limitations that we have in life at any given point in time are those that are self-imposed. At the end of the day, everything is perspective. And if we can open ourselves to the idea that we are limitless and that what we are able to create is far beyond our imagination. Now, I'm not sure if some of you have heard of biomagnetism or this is a new concept for many of you. So I'd like to share a little bit about what that means. What does biomagnetism refer to? Biomagnetism simply refers to the natural state, magnetic state found within our body. Those magnetic properties that are found in our body. Now, it is known that in the universe, there are two sides to everything, two sides to a coin, two sides to the planet. We have the North and South Pole. In reality, everything in the world has two sides, has a double. One is the exact opposite to the other. And this is a concept that's understood through ancient times. If we truly observe, we can see that the Earth is just one big giant magnet with its north and south pole, and that we call gravity that pulls everything to the Earth is this magnetic force. In fact, right through the center is the equator, and what we can observe quite easily is that the closer we get to the equator, the more biodiversity there is. And the further we move from the equator, when we look at the North and South Pole, there's ice. There's much less biodiversity. And with that, the body recovers much slower when we become closer to the Earth's middle or center or point neutral, which is the equator. People recover much more quickly. Things grow and thrive more. Now, the human body is also a huge magnet. But when we break it down from its smallest particle, which is the atom, we can see the same properties that are found within a magnet. An atom has positive, negative, and neutral charges. Take it back to grade school, it has protons, neutrons, and electrons. These protons are positive charges, and the electrons, which are negative charges, are balanced in a healthy atom. But when we lose an electron or gain an electron, one too many or one too few, that atom becomes acidic or overly alkaline. Atoms replicate, cells replicate, and before we know it, we have an unhealthy organ or an unhealthy gland or area within the body, tissue. When we look at the Earth, it has this entire magnetic field. But when that magnetic field becomes weaker, we see changes in behavior, in mental function, in physical energy, in the well-being of our body. Now, this Japanese scientist, Dr. Kiyoshi Nakagawa, he studied magnetic field, and he observed these deficiencies found in individuals who lived in tall buildings. What he understood was that the further we get from the Earth's magnetic field, the weaker our body becomes, the more our atoms lose electrons, and so there's an imbalance in our cells. Staying indoors for prolonged periods also affects our body's magnetic field, because the less we're in contact with the Earth, where our contact with the Earth's magnetic field is greater, the weaker we become. But the more contact we have, the stronger, the healthier we are. It's no surprise that there's more incidences of cancer in big cities than there are in small remote towns or villages throughout the world. That has something to do with it. It's not just nutrition or activity, but our contact with the Earth has to do with it too. Now, what he understood was that these buildings serve as like interrupters between the communication in the Earth's meridians and our own meridians. Well, what are meridians? Meridians, if we look at our system, we can see nerves, we can see veins and arteries that travel throughout our body and cross our chakra centers. The same thing happens with the Earth. The Earth has its chakra centers, and it has these meridian lines and points. But when that communication between the Earth's meridian lines and ours becomes more separated, we also are affected. Our health is affected. And his studies showed that people in tall buildings suffered more from migraines and heaviness and fatigue, chest pain even, insomnia. And they suffered more from conditions like fibromyalgia and chronic migraines, etc. Their immune system was affected. And what he proposed in terms of combating this deficiency with the Earth's magnetic field was to have more contact outdoors, to walk barefoot on the grass, to spend a little more time away from buildings, to decrease our contact with electronic equipment. Now, in line with Dr. Nakagawa's theories, Dr. Richard Boringmeier, which was the chief medical director at NASA at the time of the first astronaut launch, he was in charge of ensuring that astronauts were in the prime top health before they left the Earth. And what he found and observed when they returned was that every single one of his astronauts had a shorter leg. Not when they left, but only when they came back. That their immune system had suffered, that they were suffering from osteoporosis and arthritis, none of which those conditions existed before they left. So something happened when they left the Earth's magnetic field, and upon returning, he was able to observe the impact that had on their body. Dr. Boringmeier had studied with Dr. Roy Davis, a professor at the University of Florida, who coined the term biomagnetism. So Dr. Boringmeier discovered 150 points within the body that were associated with imbalances or germs or conditions. And so he started to apply magnets to the bodies of the astronauts to help them go back into health. He started presenting his studies internationally. He took him to Mexico, and he presented to a group of doctors in Mexico back in the 80s. And he was advised from his superiors to stop giving these lectures. But he continued, and suddenly he passed in 1991. Now, Dr. Isaac Gois, who had attended his talks in Mexico, was very interested with biomagnetism. And Dr. Gois had studied many other alternative medicine practices, and he felt that there was something valid and yet to be discovered in these theories. And what Dr. Goyce did was that he also, elaborating on this work of Dr. Bordenmeyer and Roy Davis, he was able to find pairs or 2 points within the body that created a resonance or some kind of communication that when applying magnets to those points, they created a field, and that field could neutralize germs and change conditions. Dr. Goyce his work has expanded throughout the world, and through that, thousands of practitioners such as myself have learned this method, and so much is being discovered every day to expand even more on biomagnetism. Biomagnetism has been able to reverse HIV. This is actually the first point, or the first pair that Dr. Goyce found. He found the thymus gland and the rectum were areas where the HIV virus would hide within the body. And by impacting, he could help that virus be eliminated from the body. And it's true. I've worked on many people with HIV who have recovered. So when we think of magnets and their properties, we're talking about magnet that has a negative polarity or negative charges, positive polarity and positive charges, and together these create a neutral environment which is the optimal state of our atoms. In a neutral environment, germs cannot survive. So what happens is that if we're able to apply magnets to the areas of the body in which germs or emotions or particularly toxic behaviors or toxins are hiding, we can create a different field, a healthy field, in which those things that are harming us cannot survive and the body flushes them out. It's the most simple medicine based on our atoms' natural properties and electric charges. pH has so much more to do with our health than we realize. Yes, we've heard maybe conversations about pH and we think of our digestive tract, but beyond our digestive tract and beyond nutrition, every single part of our body has a particular pH. Well, the pH that we need in our stomach is very different to the pH that we need in our bones or in our heart or in our mouth. But magnets can help bring it into each area's neutral point or optimal point. pH talks about that range of acidity versus alkalinity that exists within the body or within foods. And there are many things that affect our pH, like our nutrition and medicines, the environment, our emotions, traumatic events, surgeries, our mental patterns, our habits, whether we move or whether we're, tend to be more stationary. Do we have contact with nature or not? Now, some of the early signs that our body is getting unhealthy in a first phase would be things like a skin rash or allergies, headaches, colds, sinus issues. But in a more acute phase, we see things that are more systemic or where particular organs begin to dysfunction. Thyroid issues, adrenal issues, which are kidney-related issues, a fatty liver. In order to reduce the amount of acidity in the body, our body also needs minerals. But today, our food doesn't have a lot of minerals. And on top of that, the water that we drink not only is it void of minerals, but it's loaded with toxins, chlorine and fluoride and arsenic and so much more. And so people are drinking water without minerals. In other words, the few minerals that they receive from their food, they're flushing out the water that they're drinking. That's why in my practice, I always check to see if people need to drink lemon water. because lemon adds minerals to the water, and lemon helps to detoxify vital organs like the kidneys and the liver. When the body begins to have problems, usually it can begin in those areas. Kidneys and liver, these are filters, our body's natural filters. And those filters need to be healthy and working in optimal state. If they're not, then they put pressure on other vital organs to work excessively hard. According to Dr. Young, we can heal the body by changing the internal environment. This is a fact that's been known for hundreds of years, if not thousands. Changing our pH is not too complicated. Go outside, touch the earth, plant, do some gardening, go to the sea if you have access, drinking lemon water, taking herbs, fruits and vegetables, meditating, doing yoga, breathing, doing some deep, slow breathing, living within a house versus within a building if it's an option, or avoiding long periods of time within buildings, resting, laughing. I think that during this time of COVID-19, many have forgotten to laugh. People instead are considering and worrying about whether the grocery bags are, infested with germs, or cleaning with wipes and not hugging people, and instead of laughing and doing the things that we need to boost our immune system. People are afraid to give hugs, and yet hugs are so healing. Studies have shown that hugging people is something that can boost not only our affect, but boost our immune system. And there are other things that we can take to boost our immune system. Not just water with lemon, but also baking soda if people suffer from acidity, apple cider. But getting back to this whole concept of COVID-19 with biomagnetism, if biomagnetism is able to eliminate the HIV virus from the body, and neutralize those areas where it lives and thrives, could it not do the same for COVID-19? Fortunately, I've been able to see this within my practice time and time again, and thousands of practitioners throughout the world have been working tirelessly on COVID-19 cases with great effect, helping to eliminate the virus along with many other germs simultaneously. You see, when you change the internal environment, germs cannot survive. It doesn't matter the type of germ. That's why people that I know, loved ones of mine, have been able to recover fully from things like lupus. That's why my scoliosis was able to be corrected through biomagnetism. That's why people with tumors are able to be tumor-free, or cancers to become cancer-free. Magnets have an amazing power to get our body back into a perfect state of health. What's important is understanding that different parts of the body require different polarities, and that's where the technique of biomagnetism comes into play. I've heard many people tell me, well, what if I just lay on a magnetic bed? It's not so simple, because the pH that you need in your toes may be different to the pH you need in your heart. Using the right polarities is key. So, developing COVID-19 symptoms is much more complicated than just being exposed to the virus. In order for any virus, not just COVID-19, but any virus, to develop strength enough to develop symptoms or to show symptoms in the body, think of a virus's information. That information needs to get planted into something that can support it. So viruses need bacteria. In other words, that information needs to attach itself to protein found in bacteria in order to thrive and get activated. Bacteria like tuberculosis, bacteria like the pneumonia, pneumococcus. And so all germs work in combination. They work with other germs to give each other strength. And diseases are simply a combination of germs actively working together, supported by a particular type of emotion or emotions, supported by a type of nutrition or states of stress or toxic environments. But in order to get to an acute or critical or chronic or degenerative stage, it takes a group of germs in the body over a period of time. And this is how biomagnetism works. It's able to get to the root cause of what's creating any disease or condition, neutralize and change the environment so that they cannot survive or thrive in the body, and the body repairs and heals rapidly. So this particular virus is not just one. It's not the coronavirus of old, which I've seen thousands, not thousands, but hundreds of people with coronavirus over my years. This COVID-19 is a combination of other viruses working together, and they affect our nervous system, our glandular system, our digestive and immune systems, our pulmonary and gynecological systems. It's like a megavirus. But when we're able to change the field in the body, none of it can survive. Now, virology experts have demonstrated and revealed that studies have shown that the influenza vaccine actually helps to precipitate a susceptibility to COVID-19. So what are we talking about here? Now, to add to that, what do antibiotics do to our body? First, an antibiotic is never going to remove the virus. But two is that antibiotics affect our flora, our intestinal flora. What we're not considering is that 70% of our immune cells are in our digestive tract. So when we take antibiotics, not only are we trying, and I would say trying, to eliminate bacteria, but on top of that, we're killing our immune cells, the majority of which are found in our digestive tract. So high doses of antibiotics, are they helping us or are they actually hurting us? Now, from my perspective, and to share with those of you that may know biomagnetism, there are areas in the body that have been consistently showing up in COVID-19 cases for me and for other practitioners that I've consulted with. At least here in the United States, areas have been the glands within the head, the different lobes within the brain, the entire spine, the sacrum, the coccyx, our eyelids, which is a host for bacteria that support COVID, the trachea, the larynx, the pharynx, the tonsils, and the thymus gland here, down through the esophagus, down through the stomach, the transverse colon, all the way down to the bladder, the vaginal area, the urethra. So it's like a long line here and a long line in the back of the spine, along with the liver and pancreas and the renal system, as well as behind the knees in the popliteal area and the trochanter major, which are in the upper thighs. These are very common points in COVID-19 cases. So I hope this is helpful, and I hope to some degree it's eye-opening. And more importantly, I hope that it helps to reveal and shed some light as to how we develop conditions, not just COVID-19 related, but also how we can actually find and uncover how and why we get sick. If you'd like more information about biomagnetism, I would love to hear from you. I'm leaving my contact information. You can also follow me on Facebook or on Instagram. I look forward to your questions and comments, and I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference.